Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Good Round Battle Zone, Brian King, the Director of Operations of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Scott Crawford. We have a career interview for you tonight, and we are joined by an MLB shortstop with the Royals, and he finished with one season there with the Astros. He is one of the heroes of the 1985 World Series team that the Royals won their first World Series ever, and today he teaches athletes his zone motion program, which we're going to get into here a little bit later during our Q&A. So we want to welcome World Series winner, Buddy Biancalana. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Nice to be here with you guys.
Excellent. Brian, you got first question. Start us out.
All right, buddy. So on October 3rd, 1982, your Royals against the Oakland A's, you were able to record your first major league hit, triple off of Brian Kingman. So that had to be a special moment for you. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was a great moment. We were playing in Kansas City. I think it was my second at bat of the game, and I hit a line drive to right field. It was the last game of the season, so typically the last game of the season in those days, the lineup might be a little makeshift, and it was for the A's. They had a catcher playing right field by the name of Mike Heath, and so I hit a line drive there. And Mike Heath came running in, and the ball sailed over his head. And so I was able to get a triple out of it. And however, I tried to stretch it to an inside the park home run and was thrown out at the plate. So my first major league hit was almost an inside the park home run.
Wow. Okay.
That's
But
cool.
it was a thrill. It was an
story.
exciting day.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were there, you were at shortstop there for the Royals, for a few years there. And to your left at second base, you've got five-time All-Star Frank White. To your right at third base, you've got the legendary George Brett. So what was it like to be in that kind of infield, and what were those guys like in the clubhouse?
Well, yeah, those are pretty good players, right? I'll never forget when I was 19 years. I was first round picked by the Royals. And they put it in my contract to attend major league camp in spring training in '79. And my first start actually got a start. We'd had Freddie Patek was hurt, and so I started to play a lot at shortstop. And my first start at shortstop in spring training, George Brett was playing third base, and I kind of had to check with myself, like, okay, am I in the right spot here? Am I supposed to be on this field playing next to this future Hall of Famer at the time? And then he turned to me and he says, "You got all pop-ups over here." And I'm like, "Well, wait a second, you're George Brett. No, you get all the pop-ups." And but playing next to those guys, I learned so much from Frank White defensively. I had made 47 errors in Double-A one year, and I went to spring training and watched Frank, some of the things he was doing, really catching the ball in front and turning short hops or in between hops into short hops, and it made a big difference. I went to Triple-A that year and made 17 errors and won a Silver Glove. But playing next to those guys, it was very interesting in that World Series. As good as those guys were in the World Series, when I had my zone experience, I wanted every ball hit to me instead of them. Not because they wouldn't have made the play, but it's just kind of where my confidence was at the time. But George, George came up, was not a great third baseman, really, really worked hard to become a good third baseman. Obviously, was always a good offensive player. Frank turned himself into a pretty good offensive player. Actually, batted cleanup for us in the World Series against the Cardinals. So, but we're, that's in '85 when we won with good starting pitching and good defense, and we had just enough inning to get it done.
All right. On that, buddy, a little bit. Another player you would have played with was a fellow named Bo Jackson. You played 86, 87 in Kansas City with him. Tell us about Bo and how good do you think he could have been if he just concentrated on baseball? Obviously, he got hurt in football and sort of ended his overall sports career. But if he stuck to baseball, what do you think Bo would have turned into?
Yeah, so a little bit on Bo Jackson. One, I felt like Bo could have been an amazing baseball player, and it was easy to see that. First of all, I don't know a baseball player who hasn't struggled, right? So the game is a very difficult game. At one time or another, you're going to struggle with the game. Bo was so good, and then you'd see him struggle, and you kind of sense it. He'd kind of go, "Well, I've got football," instead of like really like doing everything he could do to become the greatest baseball player that he could be. So that being said, he was just so good, but I would have loved to have seen him just concentrate on baseball. Bo, there's certain guys in sports, you just don't want to. If you're watching a game on TV, you don't want to get up and go to the bathroom when they're due up to a bat if they're a baseball player, right? Well, that was certainly the case for Bo, but it was also the case for Bo when he was playing on defense, because you just didn't know what you might miss on defense that you'd never seen before. And he was amazing. I tell the story of one time taking a relay throw from him from right field, and it felt like I caught a shot put. I'd never felt like that. Yeah, I never felt anything like that before. It was, it was amazing. But he was amazing, and he'd hit balls at the time Royal Stadium. He'd hit them so high, you just couldn't tell how far they were going. You didn't know if the center fielder would be, camping under him, and fairly deep center field, of course, or they'd be 30 feet up on the grass hill at the time. But he was really something special, and but it's sad that he couldn't have been more of what we all knew he could be.
So September 20th, 1985, manager Dick Hauser, with 15 games left in the season, benches the starting shortstop, puts you in. It was your job pretty much the rest of the way through. Did he come and tell you he was making this switch, or was it more you played well and he kept you in the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think it was just that I played well and he kept me in. I don't recall that conversation. It doesn't mean it may not have happened. I just don't recall it. But Dick gave me an opportunity to play. We had another pretty good shortstop, Onyx Concepcion, at the time. I think Dick felt I was catching the ball better than Onyx. Neither one of us was swinging the bat very well, and I feel like he felt with our pitching that if we just caught the ball that we'd be okay, and he was right. And I'm grateful, very grateful for Dick Hauser for giving me that opportunity. Life-changing for me.
All right, buddy. Back to what we talked about a little bit before is in 1985, you broke our hearts, all of Canada. We were up 3-1. You beat us in a best of 7. Then you went on to beat the Cardinals, of course, but we were up 3-1 in that series. I want to talk about that game 7. I think I got this information right, but 6th inning, bases loaded, Jim Sundberg up, ball hit to Barfield in right field. You were getting ready to hit. You weren't on deck, but you were in the hole. So you must have had a good view of what was going on. What did you think when the ball left the bat and as the play was going on?
Yeah, it was quite a thrill. Growing up as a kid, I never thought about playing in World Series. I knew I wanted to play Major League Baseball, but I never thought about playing in World Series. And all of a sudden, we get a big hit like that from Sonny, and seeing I can't remember the exact situation, but it sounds like you know better than I do, Scott. To be honest with you, but it was a thrill to see. I think the ball went maybe off the top of the fence, if I recall correctly, there at Exhibition Stadium on a cold night there. Yeah, just amazing thrill. The hit that kind of put us over the hump in that series, and we were able to celebrate pretty good that night in Toronto. But a lot of good memories of being in Toronto. I love that city. Such a clean. I haven't been there in a while, but it's such a clean city, and I find myself saying, when I walk around trying to say, okay, I always say, it's very funny. Can't believe I'm sharing this story, but I'll say, okay, if I'm just time to do something around here, okay. And then I always think of the song, okay, Blue Jays, let's play ball. You remember that song, Scott?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
They don't still play it. They don't still play it, do they?
No, they had a couple different versions now, but we all grew up with our tape cassettes with OK Blue Jays on it. So
okay, Blue Jays,
let's
play ball. I may say that every day, just FYI.
That's good. You're welcome in Toronto anytime then.
But no, it was great playing up there. And I run into here in Kansas City is Joe Carter. You talk about a hero, boy. What a home run that was that he hit in what year was that? 87, 89? What was it?
93.
93? Yeah.
Yeah. Beat the Phillies off Mitch Williams in the bottom of the 9th.
The wild thing, yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to your Game 5 of the World Series. Pitcher Danny Jackson becomes, still to this day, the only pitcher to throw an immaculate inning in the World Series. At the time, did you guys all realize the magnitude of what he had just done.
Okay, you got to remind me, what did he do?
Immaculate inning.
Yeah.
9 pitches, nine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nine pitches, nine strikes, 3 strikeouts.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Danny Jackson is a bulldog still. And when he took that mound, who knows what he was going to do, but he just had a conviction about himself that he could beat the world, and he had an amazing career. With both, ended up with Cincinnati as well, and but Danny, we had such great starting pitching. He was one of those five that we had with Charlie Liebrandt and Buddy Black, Mark Gubazon, Brett Saberhagen, and they had such a real friendly competition that year. Boy, was it great to play behind those guys. You always knew that they're going to keep it competitive and give you a great chance to win every night out, and they did. The Immaculate Inning, okay, that's news to me. You guys are such history buffs. It's great. I love it.
History buffs and stat nerds. We know it all.
Educate me.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, I work at the Baseball Museum in Canada, so there you go, buddy. And that has to do with my next question. I always like to talk to the guys and see, like, did you keep stuff from your career? Did you donate it to other museums? Did you just give it away to the kids? Did you go up to a player in the clubhouse and say, "Hey, can I have your jersey or autograph my baseball for me?" Or anything about your career and your collection or your game use stuff or anyone else's that you have or can talk about or have on display?
Yeah, I was never into collecting memorabilia. Sometimes I wish that I collected more. I've got my own, the hit counter. If you watched Letterman, he had the hit counter, me and Pete Rose chasing Ty Cobb's hit record, right? And so I've got that, and some autograph balls, and ended up, I played with Nolan Ryan down in Houston, so that was pretty cool. And Yogi Berra was a coach down there, and certainly, playing with George here in Kansas City, but never, I never really got into the collectibles. I was kind of looked at, all of us, we're all the same. We're just doing the best we know how to do. I've never really looked up to athletes or, super singers or whoever, actors. We're just we've got our little niche in the world, and we do our thing. And so I was never really enamored by who I was playing with or against. I just was out just doing the best I knew how to do at the time, and hopefully could contribute. And I did at times, and at times I didn't.
What'd you do with your glove and your bats and stuff? Just leave them behind or give them away? Or
good question. Bats, I've given some away, at auctions. I think my glove, I know, was rehabbed at one point. It's probably in a box somewhere. Not quite sure where it is.
You gave it back to Letterman. I saw
gave it back to Letterman. That I did. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So, buddy, about halfway through the 1986 season, the Royals manager, Dick Hauser, was forced to leave the club. His health was failing. Ultimately, he succumbed to brain cancer the next year. Can you tell us a little bit about how the club dealt with this tragedy and what Hauser meant to you?
Yeah, that was a very, very sad moment. And, Dick was such a great leader, and he'd done such an amazing job back in that series in '85 in managing our club. It was the first year that he had managed where he without the DH. First time he'd managed without DH. And so, our pitchers were hitting the World Series, and he had some very difficult decisions to make in that series as to whether to let, in fact, game 6 with Charlie Liebrandt pitching, he had to make a big decision to leave Charlie in to hit, and he did, but it turned out. But, Dick was wonderful to play for. He was very even keel, really in our corner. And it was very, very sad to start to see him. Guys had noticed that he was making a few mistakes that he normally wouldn't make. And, we had no idea, what was going on. And then I know some guys saw him in the parking lot late at night one night, just walking through the parking lot, and started to wonder if there was something going on with Dick. And evidently there was, right? And so, yeah, we lost Dick. But very, meaningful to me, very grateful again for giving me the opportunity to play and have the experience that I did in that '85 series.
So the term "in the zone" has been used forever in sports. I mean, we used to say when we were playing as kids, "Oh, I'm in the zone." But you created Zone Motion, which teaches professional and amateur athletes that being in the zone can be taught. So please tell us about this program. I see you're wearing the hoodie for it now, and how people can sign up and be part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I had this experience in the World Series. My 7 games in the World Series was literally the best baseball I played my whole career. And everything just really slowed down for me, and I wasn't thinking, and everything I did was very fluid and effortless with great timing. The ball came out of my hand with just perfect speed and trajectory the entire series. Every ball at shortstop hit me right in the sweet spot, and I hit 73 points higher than my career average. But had no idea, what happened. It just was, something clicked. And then 20 months later, I was out of the big leagues because I had no idea, again, how it all happened. And, I worked hard to try and repeat it, but didn't know where to look. And there's some real subtleties in our physiology that we've been able to quantify and, more importantly, teach. So my work takes place on and off the field with athletes in many different sports, primarily baseball, but I've worked with athletes in 13 pro sports and over 20 amateur sports, and even some salespeople and musicians. And so we build and strengthen and maintain the neural pathways so that an athlete can play at that level on a more regular basis. And I like to say, it's not enough to be good or great. You have to understand how we function that allows us to be good or great. It's why guys like Aaron Judge and Clayton Kershaw and Bonds and A-Rod and Prince Fielder, guys, really great players, typically were not the same player or have not been the same player in the postseason when the pressure's turned up as they've been during the regular season. They just don't understand what makes them great. It doesn't mean they're not great, but the whole key is to really understand what is taking place so that you can process accordingly and align properly so that the brain functions in a way that allows all the muscles to fire in a synchronistic, harmonious, sequential manner. And that's the essence of what I teach.
It sounds like that would be like absolutely perfect for golfers, because the golf game is so mental. It's much more mental than it is physical.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of work in the golf world as well. You're exactly right. Golf is an amazing, amazing game, and love working in golf because there is very little margin of error. You got that little club head and the little ball, and there are a lot of little things in our physiology, I promise you, that can interfere with hitting that ball the way you want to hit it on a consistent basis. So that's kind of my area of expertise. It stems from my zone experience in the World Series and, concussions that I had as a child and even as an adult, where I learned a lot about the brain and the brain body connection and the emotional body, which is, undermines brain functioning. The brain is the operating system to the muscles. But our emotions will undermine brain functioning. So working at those levels is what I do with athletes in different sports.
And where can they find that on the internet at? What's the website?
Yeah, thank you. Zonemotion.com. Zonemotion.com.
There you go. Buddy, we want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of those stories from back in the heyday. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
I remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. We'll see everybody next time. Have a great night.